You're listening to the Ballet Piano Podcast, lifting the lid on dance accompaniment.
Hello, podcasters, and welcome to this, the first episode of the Ballet Piano Podcast. I'm Matt Gregory, and in the room with me is the podcast team, Chris Hobson.
Hello.
Akiko Hobson.
Hello.
And hashtag David Yao of Instagram.
Hello.
So we are three ballet pianists, and David is a ballet master. And this podcast will be us talking about playing for ballet class, the do's and don'ts, the philosophy and science behind it. And we'll talk about our own experiences as we go along with some funny anecdotes. And we hope that you, the listeners, will take away something insightful or even enjoyable. But this episode is about meeting the team and finding out how we got to where we are today. And a bit about our backgrounds and how we got into this line of work. So Chris, why don't you tell us how you got started accompanying dance and how you ended up being sat around this table with us three?
Well, hello, Matt. I don't know. I think I got into accompanying dance like everybody does, and it was never. Well, for me, it wasn't a planned way into it. It was by accident. So I was on a gap year, pretty much. I wasn't working, and through a friend of a friend, found out that there was a job being advertised at Northern School of Contemporary Dance in Leeds, and met with somebody from there, and they said, "Oh, we want somebody to come and play for us. It's £15 an hour," and this was back in the day. It was 2003, I think. So £15 an hour when you don't have a job and you're young. I was 17 at the time. It's a lot of money, even for only doing 12 hours work a week. I said, yes, go on, I'll give this a go.
Yeah.
So I went and sat in a studio in Leeds thinking, what the heck is going on here? Which sometimes I still do with contemporary dance, but I loved it and it was great. And it was this whole thing about being able to be collaborative and enjoyable and not knowing what was coming at you in the studio, which was great. So I did the contemporary side of it for a couple of years and then got into playing for ballet. So I did a little bit down at Elmhurst briefly and then freelanced around for a while before taking a job at Northern Ballet Theatre, as it was then called, doing a lot of new ballets really and new repertoire choreographed a lot by David Nixon and things, which was extraordinary. It was a great learning curve to be able to get all of these scores under your fingers and be in a studio while things were being created. So I worked there for a few years, nipped over to Slovenia and worked with Arek Mukamedov for a little while because he asked me to go over and be his pianist. So I was over there for a short while, which was, again, completely different. It was a similar sort of job as being in Leeds, but, again, completely different. I'd never lived abroad before and I was only in my early 20s. So it was a good learning experience for me. And then I came back to the UK, freelanced around for a while, and now it's 2020, and I find myself sitting in London with a group of people who've become very close friends. Aww. So there's you, who I met through working in my job down here. There's David Yao, who I met in Birmingham first off at the school up there, and then we now both work in London. And there's Akiko, previously Nozaki, now Hobson. So we can all work out what happened there. We started working together and then somehow we got married.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know. It's all a blur.
I still don't know what happened.
I don't know, but that's another story for another podcast, isn't it? So I mean, it was a strange one because I started off in contemporary, and I don't know many people who've started off in contemporary and then moved over to ballet. I've known people who've done it the other way around and started off in ballet and then moved over. But there's something about ballet that I particularly enjoy. I still enjoy doing contemporary side, but the ballet side is, for me, I think it must work with my head. It's very structured. It's very what it is. Yeah. And I suppose I learned the counting side of things in contemporary. Of course, there's some strange counts in contemporary. It can be on phrases of 7 or phrases of 5 or phrases of whatever. And so then going into ballet after a couple of years seemed actually quite easy and quite straightforward because everything was very structured. It was all in square phrases. So by square, 8 bars of 8 bars and things like that, 8 lots of 8 bars. It was just, it worked for me and I really enjoyed it. So that.
And so you started in 2003.
I started in 2000.
17 years ago.
17 years ago, yeah. And if I think I think about my current age, I think, wow, it's over half my life that I've spent in a ballet studio or a studio of some description. Yeah. So go on then. Tell me about how you got into this.
Well, I started by playing tap classes first because I trained at Doreen Bird's in musical theatre. And then when I graduated and had the summer, I needed something to do between performing jobs. And I'd heard they were looking for a pianist. And I had no repertoire. I didn't even no real technique, I'd imagine, not for
I'm sure you
class
did.
playing. And so I sort of learnt there, really.
Right.
Got myself a fake book,
Yeah.
got all of the repertoire. We'll talk about that
We'll
later
get to
on.
that, yeah.
We'll get to that.
But you surely had the experience of like somebody playing for you for a long time.
Yeah,
Does that
yeah.
help?
Yeah.
I suppose
And
you knew
being-
what a
and-
rondation was or a plie was before you went to be a ballet pianist, whereas when I started or Akiko started, we didn't have a clue what either of those things meant. or
Yeah.
what was
I had
required.
no clue of English. I didn't understand
so
what teachers
amazing.
were saying sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I knew the structure of a ballet class and all the terminology, so that was a given. But for me, it was the repertoire and the actual technique.
Right.
But then I was at Dorian Birds for 5 years, sort of pretty much full time. And then, like you, I just started freelancing in London, coming up to London. Started at the companies at DV8, firstly. Then, random as it was, now Wayne McGregor.
Yeah.
And then I did a bit at Rambert. And then all the London schools, Central and E&B School and stuff like that. Yeah, and that was about 12 years ago when I
Gosh.
started.
Right,
Did
so
you contemporary?
No. And the couple of times that I've sort of been forced to, I mean,
How was it?
not good. I feel so fraudulent when I have to play for contemporary. I try and fake it as best as I can. I'm definitely classical all the way.
There's a lot to be
Um,
said for being able to just somehow blag a fake, though, isn't there? I don't know how we do it, but if you can blag a fake,
Yeah.
but
yeah.
you don't feel good about yourself sometimes, do you?
No. But yeah, so Akiko, what about you? How did you
Oh, I was a student. I studied in Japan undergraduate, and I came to London to do master's degree. And then, while I was student, I met a boy who was studying at the Royal Ballet School, and he was a Japanese boy. He's actually now doing very well in Joffrey Ballet. Yoshi, I call him. He was a first year student at Royal Ballet School, and he invited me to watch one of the Parents' Day. And I just thought, whoa, it's a bit posh and it sounds really fun. Royal Ballet School, wow, Covent Garden. So I went and I saw my very first ballet class, and I just fell in love, and I just thought I can do this. So that evening I got home, made my own CV, sent my CV to absolutely every single big, small, local, any ballet school. I need experience, give me some work. And after a year, I was playing every year.
Right.
Yes.
And now, how long have you been playing for ballet?
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how many years, but I think it's something like 12, 13 years.
Because we thought we were working together at one point, didn't we? And we didn't realise.
Because I was at one point playing at the Bard College.
Yes, when I was.
Oh no!
And we didn't know. Yeah.
Well,
So I might have played for you. I
Well,
don't remember.
oh,
wasn't it? Akiko and I were offered the same job, weren't we? Do you remember we were talking about this? I
Yeah.
think it was 2004 or 2005. It was.
Yeah, I was I was
Maybe
doing
it
the
was more
final
recent.
year
Yeah, you were
at
doing
the
your finals.
uni. Yeah.
So you were offered a job at Central School of Ballet by the director then, and I was offered the same job. So one of us didn't take the job, but we don't know who was offered the job first.
I'm sure Chris was offered and he said no. So okay, let's give it to Akiko.
Yeah, but I think you're much more glamorous than I am as well. So if it's, and I wasn't very good. So I presume I was second choice.
Well, your English was better than me, so
Not necessarily.
So David, tell
Hello?
us about your teaching career and how and where you started teaching and how you got into that.
It was really interesting listening to Chris saying how he fell into playing for, contemporary dance and everything.
Yeah.
I didn't set out to be a teacher. I never felt when I was a dancer, I had a dancing career for almost 15 years. And I kind of like fell into the teaching because I wanted to do something else. I wanted to find out through psychology how to make the transition from being a dancer to not being a dancer, because I'd watched people struggle so much in my career, and I thought we need help,
Yeah.
because at the time nobody was helping. At the time, it wasn't known. So I set out to do a degree in psychology, and to support myself whilst I was doing the studying. I knew of a few friends who were actually doing a 1-year teacher's course for professional dancers at the Royal Ballet School, which is where I trained anyway as a dancer. So that's what happened. I kind of like listened to them. I made inquiries, and I kind of blagged my way in, as it were.
Yeah.
And I was very, very grateful because you know because I it was like, how am I going to support myself? So I thought, well, I know more about dancing, and so I thought, well, give it a go. So I went along, not really knowing what to expect, but knowing I had to do something because I needed to support myself. So it took a year, and no joke, there was 4 of us on the course, and every day somebody cried. It was just so stressful.
Oh.
But really, I'm so grateful that I did it because I learned so much. It was like really, really intense.
Yeah.
But I'm very grateful to all the teachers and all the people who like helped me along the way. It was a fantastic course. And so as I was studying psychology, I was teaching. So I was studying for my degree at Goldsmiths College. And next door was the Laban, the old Laban.
Ah, yes.
And I knew one of the teachers there who was a very old friend who had been a ballet master in the company that I had just left the last time I'd danced, which was Hong Kong Ballet. So it was kind of like very fortuitous that he was just happened to be teaching next door. And I said, are there any chances of having any work there? And he went, well, we'll see. And the next thing was I was doing part-time teaching as I was actually studying, which was a fantastic, entry into teaching. But so once I graduated, I then kind of flitted around here, different other schools, and I ended up sharing my teaching with one of my mentors, Richard Glasstone.
Richard.
I know, who is a fantastic teacher. He was very stern when we were like very young, but looking back now, I realize what he was trying to do and what he was trying to give us as very young, talented people. And I am forever grateful to him and all the other teachers that I was so fortunate to have at the time, but him especially. And we both shared a teaching job at Central School of Ballet.
Was that the first school you worked at?
Well, I was kind of like co-teaching at Central School of Ballet and the Laban at the same time.
Right.
But just being able to actually share a teaching position with somebody of that caliber and that knowledge was just amazing.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it was like having an encyclopedia on tap.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whatever question I had, there was an answer.
Yeah.
So
it was
lucky,
amazing.
yeah.
Yes,
Mm.
it was.
That's like what it was like for me when I was learning to play as well. I was surrounded by some really great
Really, yeah.
people. If I could say, how do we do that? Or what's that intro? Or
Yes.
those tips and tricks,
Yes.
they were on tap.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They're
very
little
useful.
gems, aren't they? Those pearls
Absolutely.
of wisdom.
Yeah.
So then I was kind of asked if I would just go along to the Royal Ballet School and just give a class, and I was very, very lucky that they liked what I did and they invited me to teach there. So I then taught there for like 10 years.
Wow.
And then I've then left and went to Elmhurst for 3 years, and now I'm at English National Ballet School, and it's been great.
Wow.
Been very, I think,
How many years teaching?
over 20 now.
Gosh.
Okay,
Longer than
so
I've been a
we've got-
dancer.
I was just doing the maths before. We've got roughly 43 years playing experience between us three and 20 years on top. So we've got, 60 odd years worth of experience.
It's not bad going, is it?
It's all
Yeah.
right, considering we're all only 20 years old. Let's say late 20s.
All right.
So yeah, that's it, podcasters, for this episode. Please join us next time where we'll start to delve into the exercises of a ballet class, starting with the warm-up. Don't forget to like and subscribe via your podcast provider, and find us on Instagram and Facebook at the Ballet Piano Podcast. And we'll catch you next time. Bye for now.
Goodbye.
Bye.